You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis show. My guests, Kokubako, Kofi Abochi, Dominic Ayene, and Nana Akomia. Now, I will reserve the messages that have come in, even for the drones and this one also. But you'll be surprised, those who are also against the views that you are so convinced about on this platform. So let's quickly try and see if we can understand what is happening from Monday. There's going to be a lifting of the ban that was placed on illegal small-scale mining. And the government has made a lot of progress in the No Galamsey crusade. No to Galamsey crusade. So let's listen to the minister who has been in charge of the interministerial committee and a couple of others who have made a number of comments about what is supposed to happen from Monday. So Professor Kwabena Frimpong is the chair of the interministerial committee on illegal mining. Then we'll hear from the task force commander who has been overwhelmed with the mass destruction of reserve, and then we'll hear again about concern from the concerned small-scale miners. Let's watch and listen to this.
Having successfully implemented the strategies outlined in the roadmap, the ban on small-scale mining is being lifted as from Monday, 17 December. Having successfully implemented the strategies outlined in the roadmap, the ban on small-scale mining is being lifted as from Monday, 17 December for miners who have gone through vetting successfully to go back to work within the regularized and reformed framework.
Indeed, this is the largest. In fact, I don't even know how to start and how to end. I'm even shocked seeing the ground like this. The largest so far at this very site. I think first and foremost, we should just thank the government for at least lifting the ban after the 2-year ban placement on small-scale mining. It's been a hard time for us, and it's been a lesson well learned for all small-scale miners. And I don't think that the problems that we faced or what we caused in the beginning that brought about the ban will continue. But we will see a change, and small-scale mining will be done in a way that wouldn't destroy the environment and the water. But okay, there's going to be a lot of change, you know, because at first the problem that we were faced with was monitoring. Because if you should get your license from Accra, Minerals Commission will be in Accra, EPA will be in Accra, school lands will be in Accra, and at the end of the day, you take your license and you go to the various villages or the district without any proper monitoring. You don't expect a holy job done. And that brought about this illegal activities and people just flouting the law and doing whatever they want to do. But the government has assured us that at least he has demonstrated enough goodwill for the fight against galamsey by bringing the vanguard, by bringing the drones, by making sure small-scale miners have been trained in Takwa School of Mines. And in so doing that, I think we've learned a lot.
Nana, what do you understand have been the gains we have made over this fight for which the president, you know, put his presidency, you know, on the line?
Thank you. I think that it is very clear that the allowance of the operation of galamsey is an indictment on the governments that have come over the last couple of years. That this very destructive occupation has been allowed to fester in this country over the last two decades or so, and led to open destruction of our countryside. It's a major shame and a major indictment on the kinds of administration that we've had over the period. It's an open sore which should not have been allowed to even start. And we allowed it to start, and we allowed it to fester and become a major issue in this country. And I am happy that President Akufo-Addo, I don't remember if there has been any other issue that he openly declared that he was taking his presidency. Because what has gone on is, you can't even describe it. I come from a small village in Achime Boakwa called Insutem. And those days we would go back to the village for holidays. We'll go to the farms with our grandmother and so on. And for 40 years, forest land, forest vegetation that has been intact for 40 years were gone in 2 years. Beyond that, people who were doing proper agriculture, cocoa farming, food farming, had their lands destroyed, whether you liked it or not. If they come for your 2-acre cocoa farm and you resisted, well, when they dig the next farm for galamsey, they dump the stuff in your farm, in your cocoa farm. You will be forced to sell your cocoa farm to them. And this is just my small village in Insutem. Rivers that we used to, Insutem just maybe between the rivers, between the Birem and one of the tributaries. So it's a place that is heavily watered. Rivers that people would drink, clear rivers without any problem. With river banks that were about 10 meters tall. Within 2 years, those banks were gone. The rivers were so muddy. And I'm talking of rivers that you can see the pebbles on the bed as the water flowed. All gone in 2 years when galamsey started. Some of these forest lands that I remember that you would walk through, if you didn't have your grandmother beside you, as a 10-year-old boy, you're afraid. These are forests. They were gone, they've been flattened, you could play football on them. In short years, because, and you see, small-scale mining, whether it's galamsey or legal, had been with us over the period. But the introduction of the big machines took it to a level that clearly was killing our country. And it was going to continue.
The machines and the chemicals.
Now, so something had to be done. Yes, other governments have tried to do a few things, but they were not sustained. Fortunately, at this period, we've had government putting the weight of the presidency. The president himself saying that he doesn't mind losing elections if he can stop this for the country. So we are in a good period as we speak. The small-scale mining was banned. As for galamsey, when people say galamsey has been, the ban on galamsey has been, I don't understand, because galamsey is illegal. So you can't lift a ban on illegality. Right from the beginning, galamsey is an illegality. So you have to just ban it and try and make all mining legal. So one ban it in the process, because the problem was so serious. Even legitimate mining, those with licenses, had to be affected for a period of 2 years or so. Now it's time to take stock. And that's what the Minister for Environment was
now some announcing. 300 of them have been cleared.
There are about 900 of the small-scale miners. There are another 300 or 400.
Of galamsey?
No. There were total...
the legal
ones, the ones with licenses.
Yeah. 300
there were about
900. This is their document. It says 931 concession documents were submitted.
Yes.
848 or 91% were vetted. Of these, 339 were partially endorsed. 499 are pending endorsement.
Exactly.
Okay, and there's another 300 or so that have not.
So for now, it's a 330 who have been cleared.
So those will be allowed to work, but even they are going to come under new conditions.
Right.
There's going to be mining guards which will have the same status as forest guards. There's going to be all kinds of structures at the local communities to monitor. For those who are doing galamsey, there's also provision. And you see, that is, for me, the important one. What alternative do you arrange for the large numbers of rural youth who are engaged in galamsey? And some of these measures, we hope that they will go some way to bring them back into some employment. They've been trained, some of them have been trained. In every mining community, they've selected young people and trained them at some of the University of Mines and so on. So they're now aware of sustainable mining practices and the danger of their former practices to the environment. Okay. In every key mining area, some of these young people are there. There's also going to be community mining projects where young people in any community will have to apply. They may not go through the rigorous licensing requirements to be licensed small scale, but they want to do informal mining. You have to apply, and then you want to make sure that in your application, some of your people have been trained and be held responsible. And these trained people in small scale mining will be given licenses and ID cards and so on to try and formalize it and also try and bring it into the monitoring space. That what they call the chamfan, which is the local name for the machine that actually dredges the river, which really is the major cause of the destruction of the river. The use of that machine has been banned completely. It's been banned completely. Whether you are a small-scale legal miner or informal, you can't use that chamfan machine. And they've put together all kinds of monitoring mechanisms. But for me, all of these community mining associations and licensing requirements and all the training, all of that, it still comes back to the one thing that has always been lacking. That is the enforcement.
All right.
The laws on our books would have been more than sufficient
to deal with it
if those people at the local levels entrusted with enforcement were able to do their work.
Okay.
I would advise that going forward, if there is any instances of illegal mining activity or destructive mining activity going on, the DCE should be sanctioned immediately and investigated. The district security chief should be sanctioned pending investigation. If you do it 2-3 places, because the illegal activity, the destruction is so open, it's not hidden.
Okay.
That people at the local level and trusted response cannot say they don't know about
there,
it.
but you, again, things ought to be done lawfully. If you go and attack a DCE, attack quote unquote a DCE because some illegal mining is going on, there may not be basis to deal with them.
Yes, I've said, something, 1 second, I've said that there's always somebody at the local level.
I get that.
And trusted responsibility.
Right. Exactly.
Agree.
So if there is a breach, it means they haven't
must
been
have
doing their
neglected.
work. Yes.
Right.
And
okay.
if you don't punish them, what incentive would the next DCE or the next
police
police
commander have? It is not
have?
in all of the cases that they will be negligent.
But I have said
or
that
they would be.
I have said pending.
They'll be complicit.
So I have said pending investigation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So if
Thank
the
you.
investigation then establishes
Thank
that
you.
clearly,
Thank
then,
you.
know,
Right.
But you can't
Radical
allow
measures
people to get away
obviously
and then
needed.
hope you can solve this thing.
Okay. So I'm looking something that Kuku has there. Is that the comprehensive policy? I've been trying to see after after yesterday. I was hoping I could get one.
Yeah.
This was, I think, not because of yesterday's.
Right.
They've put this out long
Right.
ago.
Okay. So
It's to do with it says project appraiser and implementation document for the multi-sectoral mining integrated project. More and more, it's more the point Akomia was making. You know, alternative livelihood project.
Right.
That comes when you are dealing with the galamsey proper.
okay. So I'm asking whether you think that the policy that is now being outlined, it's a panacea.
Well, look, we've had a history of failure in dealing with this matter over a long period of time, cutting across various administrations. And that was because, one, the enforcement regime was very weak or virtually non-existent. There was also lack of honesty and commitment on the part of the enforcement agencies and Ghanaians in general. You know, so right now, it's too early to assess what we're doing. I would say partially, it's been successful. We've been able to conscientize people. We've got people very alert, civil society, the media, and the rest have gotten very much involved this time, much more than ever before. And one is hoping that a certain culture of deterrence and commitment is being created. But we are far
I've actually said, without any fear of contradiction, that this was the media's, job, and it was the media's idea that the government decided to take over and do it more properly.
I agree.
Otherwise, through even the vetting processes of Amewu and Co., you would have known and heard that the plan was not what has been implemented.
This is a valid point you make, but at the end of the day, it was
it's the result that is important.
Yes, it's the result. And I'm looking at the observations that the Minister of Environment yesterday put out. I mean, the point about to qualify for full endorsement, the following should be satisfied: acquisition of insurance policy for workers, acquisition of water use permit, registration of workers for social security payments, usage of personal protection equipment, safety and environmental stewardship, and non-use of foreigners as workers. It's making this work. Not just talking, walking the talk. That is critical. Of course, see, the small-scale miners, let's be honest, they citizens of the land, quite a lot of them, even though if you read these things, some of them had forged licenses and the rest, so I put them outside that orbit of what I'm discussing. But those who were properly registered and licensed, really, the ban affected their economics. There's no doubt about that. Their livelihood and things. And there was a lot of agitation out there that whilst it was good to deal with the illegals, time was not on the side of those who were illegals and whose businesses had been truncated. So I think the government decided to focus on them first in terms of resolving this challenge. And I'm with them in terms of that drift. The question is whether we'll be able to enforce these new regulations and things that we've put out there. Very fine ones, to be honest with you, hardly debatable, but it's enforcement. And as early as possible, also this project, this alternative livelihood thing must kick in. Because that is the long-term solution for the galamsey thing. We can use police methods, military methods, enforcement, all the rest on this galamsey thing.
And there's good incentive to have it done quickly too before elections kick in.
Well, I
so
don't
the
want
politicians will be in a hurry to have it done.
Oh, I hear you. But I didn't really want to make it an election-related thing.
Okay,
because
that's
you know
right.
what? In terms of that time span, 4 years, it's not even enough to deal with this matter. That is over 30, 40, if not 50 years old. So if you're going to restrict yourself to just looking at election mathematics, it may not help. Okay,
there's a lot of speed that is applied when
they'll go for the
an electoral benefit.
When it comes to that level, sometimes it's optics too.
Okay.
So you do some quick fixes here, let people think you are working, doing something, when indeed, substantively, nothing much is happening. So you win the election, but the threat of galamsey remains. I would plead that it shouldn't be election related.
Okay.
That's why I was happy when the president said, look, I'm prepared to even lose the election on basis of my fight against galamsey. We shouldn't make it election related. The small scale also should not be election related. Look, it's economics. It has its own benefits for the nation and the individuals who are engaged in it.
Right.
And having placed the ban on it, a lot of families out there were also suffering. Okay. So it's something we should be very realistic and honest about and treat it in a very depoliticized and dispassionate way.
Okay. The conditions that Kweku mentioned about need to acquire license policy for workers, and I'm asking Abochi here.
And don't forget, drones have been brought in.
Right.
Yeah. The application of technology.
That's correct. Acquisition of water use permit, registration of workers for social security. I mean, these are national laws, statutes that ought to be complied with. You don't need a minister to come and say this has to be done. So like Ezeta Akumia said earlier, it's simply about enforcement of our laws.
Simple.
Now they make the observation that nationwide, 165 companies groups and enterprises satisfied these conditions. 184 had problems with tax identification numbers. 4 had problems with mineral rights agreements, that's licenses. 420 had issues with EPA permits. You shouldn't have a problem with this. Before you went there, EPA should give you the permit.
Yeah.
665 had problems with operating permit. You need it. Now, important, the challenges they face. Forged Environmental Protection Agency documents. That's only one. How do you think they can overcome these things?
There's a concept called regulatory capture, which implies that when you have corrupt agents conniving with interested parties, and the persons who are supposed to regulate you are actually helping you do the wrong thing. It's more dangerous than having no regulation.
A lot of that happening in this country.
And that's what, no, that is exactly what we have. Because the conditions you've mentioned actually all exist on paper. For example, before you embark on any major activity of this nature, you need an environmental impact assessment conducted. I'm not sure how the EPA will grant you the permits when you have clearly indicated that you're going to mine on the banks of a river. As I listen to Nana Komia, who obviously has good looks, but I think is much more senior in age. And so,
I like that.
Yes, you know, and has seen better days.
I just wish I had your degrees.
You have better, you know, but has seen better days. And where he's talking about, I haven't been to Nsute myself, but I've driven on the road, Solokumasi Road, I think. And it's one of the green areas of Ghana. And as he described, I was just going through the site. It's sad to see the days of greenness turn into brown, to see beautiful rivers completely muddied. Now, the only reason this will happen is because of regulatory capture, where our regulatory institutions, to use the old expression, are in bed with the persons they're supposed to regulate. And so the only way we can overcome this, and I'm glad, I think when he spoke, I actually sensed some bipartisanship as Nana spoke, that governments over the years, and I see this problem. So it's actually trans-government. And I think there has been trans-governmental initiative as well. But there is a certain level of energy that has been brought into this that obviously is commendable and hopefully should be sustainable. That we should not allow people to destroy our environment, which have been there for hundreds of years, to be destroyed within a period of 2 years.
Hopefully should be sustainable.
Should be.
Where he mentions particular, a lot of destruction has happened there. And the Ochehine himself had taken a project on himself to ensure that this didn't happen. And yet, this is where we were until there was a presidential intervention. So responsibility. How can you be so hopeful?
Well, so responsibility, and that's what he mentioned. And again, I'm happy about that. The problem with Ghana is, you know, things happen and then we'll move on. The only way we can move forward in this regard is to do some introspection, is to do some forensic investigation as to why we are where we are. Why do some of these people have permits to mine in rivers or by rivers?
And some of the permits are forged.
And some of the permits have been forged. For those ones, direct criminality.
Right.
But for instances where someone has the authority to grant the permit, and he has granted the permit, even though some environmental impact is supposed to be conducted, and it has been conducted, let's see the report. What did the report say? And how come these permits were still granted? I'm just saying there must be some responsibility. There must be a fear, some deterrence of this happening in future. You need to have a combination of strategies, and I think we could read some of them, which actually indicate a combination of strategies. But one of the key ones is that we must start creating a sense of ownership of the environment by local communities, because they are the ultimate police. Look, when you have the district agencies and departments failing, when you even have the DCE not doing his work, ultimately it takes the people. And the reason this actually came to light is because, like you said, the media spoke. But the reason the media spoke was because somebody complained at the local level. And I think, again, and I mentioned the fact that they dump it if they try buying your cocoa farm. It's because someone was a victim. Out of that person's anger, there was some noise made. It became a national conversation. Government bought into it. A policy was put on the move, and suddenly we are where we are. I think that we must empower local people because ultimately they are the first holders of the equity in the environment. And if the environment is destroyed, it is someone's livelihood which has been destroyed. It is someone's source of water which has been destroyed. Ultimately, we all pay a price as a country. So my only suggestion, I think, in this regard is that we must have a certain introspection and examination done of our regulatory bodies. And to be honest, this is not just the environment, not just the EPA and the other ancillary environmental bodies, but there's a lot of regulatory capture going on in this country concerning our regulators. Because we see licenses that should not have been issued. We see instances in which people have been permitted to engage in businesses that otherwise they shouldn't have been engaged in. And the only reason why you and I are drinking bottled water and using all kinds of products and not feeling afraid is because someone is supposed to do a certification. And the person has done it, and we are believing that the person has done the requisite things that are supposed to safeguard our health as far as patronizing certain products are concerned. But when you have a regulatory capture, then you have a danger. And some countries have gone through this phase and have suffered. And I do not think that we should allow ourselves to continue the experience of regulatory capture, but in the circumstances, that is what we have. I'm just going to, if you allow me, just one more point in terms of the remedial mechanism. That I think in terms of sustainability, in order to ensure that we keep this going, apart from getting the local communities empowered, we need to also ensure that we resource our officers. Because the reason why sometimes corruption thrives is because people basically calculate the risk of not being corrupt. And the risk is so low because whatever you are getting in your position is so small that you don't mind being fired. And so when you are promised a higher return, sometimes people calculate.
And that place is big money.
And that's huge. Because they are dealing with some of these guys, they go to the forest, and the guy will ask you, how much is, I'm just giving it a hypothetical example.
No, you are right.
How much is your salary? And that policeman stands there, and probably his salary is next to nothing. They're going to give him 2 or 3 years of his salary together just to pretend he never saw them.
Yep.
It's true.
I'm just saying there are certain realities. Sometimes when you complain about corruption and you close your eyes to the realities, frankly, you get nowhere. So I think we must incentivize, and I know it's not that easy because he has to be subject to budgetary constraints and all that, but we have to start really looking at questions of compensation, particularly for law enforcement. And so when these people go out there to chase or fight some of these people who can easily change their circumstances, then the risk or the cost-benefit analysis of actually enforcing the law.
No matter, if you like, triple the salary of the district police officer or triple the salary of the DCE, these people will still offer them 10 times.
I agree.
So
I agree. But I'm just saying the cost.
It can minimize.
It's a combination of
the
things.
Forest guards. It's not just the money. It's not just the salary. Also conditions of service. The whole package.
And you see that police officer earning 1,000 cedis a month. The value of that position that allows him to access this 20 times, he values that position. The thing is the enforcement. If he knows he can get away.
Right.
Close that gap.
Right.
Close that gap of getting away. And you see.
And we have become aware, Dominic, the reason it is an interministerial, fight is because there are lines of responsibility at the top level that are not working. Koku just referred to, forest officers, forest reserve officers. And he and I are privy to documentation. Reserve officers giving permission for such things to happen within, forest reserve, a place that is reserved, and which is bad. So what do you say? The Interior Ministry, what happened that Chinese are arrested and they are holding guns, obviously not licensed, and not ones that will be licensed anyway? Are we getting out of this?
That's a very interesting question, but I want to start from where Kofi left. I'm talking about Aboji, and then I will come to the issue that you have raised. This is clearly an issue of regulatory failure. All right, and he has alluded to the fact that there might be a sense in which there is regulatory capture, okay, where regulators are basically out there engaged in rent-seeking behavior, taking bribes, being corrupted, and then colluding with wrongdoers in order to be able to carry out illegal activities. And so when you have that kind of situation, it becomes difficult for law enforcement to ever work and work properly. If you look at the mining, the regulatory regime on mining, the responsibility for policing mining activity is not that of the Ghana police. It is not that of the, Ghana Armed Forces, all right? It is not that of the Immigration Service. It is that of the Minerals Commission. Now, the Minerals Commission, as the chief regulator of the mining sector, has a division known as the Chief Inspector of Mines. The Chief Inspector of Mines is one person, administrative head of that division, who resides in Accra. But you have district mining officers who act for and on behalf of the Chief Inspector of Mines. So for anybody who is conducting a mining activity, whether legally or illegally, it is the duty of the district mining officers to police their activities and report to the Chief Inspector of Mines for action to be taken. But the problem with the Minerals Commission is that the commission is spread thin on the ground. And if you have a situation where the minister responsible for mines under the Minerals and Mining Act, Act 703, declares an area or designates an area, as, a mining area, or doesn't even do so, but there's information coming to the Minerals Commission that mining activities are taking place. It is the duty of the Chief Inspector of Mines through his officers on the ground, the district, officers of the Minerals Commission, to police that activity and report. Of course, when it comes to the environment, it is also the EPA officers on the ground who must report. So if you have a situation, as Mr. Bochi has pointed out, where there is regulatory capture and where officers are prone more to rent-seeking behavior than to law enforcement, then you have a problem. Okay, as Nana Komia pointed out earlier, all these problems came about not for the want of a legal framework, because in 2012 we passed the Minerals and Mining Health, Safety and Technical Regulations, LI 2182, and the things that my brother Kuku read out, which the minister listed in the policy relating to general health and safety,
before
and
you
so
go,
on.
Samson, look at the size of this minerals. It is 2 inches thick.
We're still talking.
And you're still talking about bringing in measures. Just enforce a quarter of this.
So all of you are talking.
That's true.
Yeah.
And Abochi talks about regulatory capture, which is a big issue for all of you.
Yes, it is.
So do you think that the more layers we are creating on top of this is the solution? Because even the task force is being accused.
Yes.
Even the task force, they are being accused of also, getting captured.
Yes, getting captured. And interestingly, something
some of them, of
in
course.
in the course of my preparations for today's panel discussion, I came across a report that was compiled by the International Institute for Environment and Development, the IIED, which is a very renowned UK-based, think tank.
Okay.
And this is what they...
Now, hold on with the portions you are going to read from there. I'll take a quick break and then return for you to read that. But there are still concerns. Occupy Ghana had raised issues, had done takes here about the need for the licenses or leases to be subjected to parliamentary ratification and approval.
Yes.
Now that we say we have cleared how many, do they in law have what the law requires them, the Constitution requires them to have? And the Supreme Court has been very emphatic on this. Without that approval, what goes on is an illegality. And if you read section 268 of the law, it says any transaction, contract or undertaking involving the grant of a right or concession by or on behalf of any person, including the government of Ghana, to any other person or body of persons, howsoever described, for the exploitation of any mineral, water, or other natural resources of Ghana, made or entered into after the coming into force of this Constitution, shall be subject to ratification by Parliament. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, and we'll have Dominic Ayine continue with his presentation. But whilst we're back, there was a suggestion by Mr. Aboche, and it does appear that everybody endorses it. You know, anytime we've had to discuss it, Kwaku Baako has raised the issue of the big guys who are behind it, high up, top in the society, who are behind it. So Aboche says, why don't we do this? Let's publish a list. Now that we know who was doing the wrong thing, let's publish the list, name and shame them. It might help. Okay.
Yes, so something I was referring to this study which was done in 2016, August 2016 actually, by the International Institute for Environment and Development. And this is the view that the report takes of the Interministerial Task Force on mining. It says that one of the questionable moves made has been the Interministerial Task Force on Illegal Mining, which conducts sweeps of illegal mining operations to arrest miners and seize equipment. Although there is a need to regulate and penalize those working illegally in the sector, this intervention has been ineffective at reducing illegal operations in the long term because it does not sufficiently address the root causes of informality, access to land, geological data, finance, and ease of licensing. So the report clearly identifies some of the challenges.
What does it say is a questionable thing?
Well, it's questionable in the, okay, so they take a certain perspective. Okay, so they think that artisanal mining, if properly regulated, you know, can lead to, you know, increase in livelihoods, you know, sustainable livelihoods. It can contribute to growth in GDP. You know, it can also create jobs, you know, in the economy and so on and so forth. So they are taking a more positive view, you know, of artisanal mining. And they think that the phenomenon of illegality is caused by our lack of, you know, proper handling, you know, of the issue of small-scale mining, making a lot of them, them fall into illegality and informality, and that is why, this is happening. Okay. But, you know, as I was saying, we have the laws, okay? We have, several regulations pursuant to Act 703. They are not being enforced, all right? You know, and then again, the issue of regulatory capture needs to be addressed. If we don't address these challenges that we have, there is no way that we will ever solve the problem of, small-scale mining. Okay. And then also, you see, you asked a question at the beginning about the 20 gains. Seconds. Yeah. The gains. You know, we put the ban because we wanted to ensure that there is reclamation, wanted to ensure that there is reforestation, and so on, and proper licensing. Have these been done properly? Okay. That's the question.
Very, very interesting, and thank you very much. My guests have been Abdul Malik Kwaku Baako, Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Kofi Aboche, Immediate Past Dean, GIMPA Law Faculty, and partner at Axis Legal Solicitors. Dominic Ayine is MP Boga East and Deputy Ranking Member, Constitutional Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Nana Komia, MD State Transport Company, that's the STC, and a former Communications Director, the New Patriotic Party. Thank you all very much. I'm Samson Ladia Yenini. My outfit, as always, is by Latida. God willing, next time we can look at new holidays and other things coming up.